Hello and welcome to College Algebra Section 1.4. I'm Gregory Carlson and we are going to be learning how to solve quadratic equations today. We're actually not going to do cubics right now, but we will solve quadratic equations. And so let's talk really quickly. I've been alluding to it. Let's talk about the fundamental theorem of algebra. One of the fundamental theorem of algebra can get a little complicated, so I don't want to get too deep into it. But one nice thing that it says is that if you have an equation of this kind of form, some kind of polynomial, where you have x to the power and decreasing orders of x, if you have an equation of that form, then that means the number of answers it's going to have is equal to the degree of the polynomial. And the degree of the polynomial is easy because that's just the exponent, the highest exponent of a variable. So you can see in this equation, x squared minus 4x plus 2 equals 0. The degree is equal to 2. And that means that this is going to have two answers because the highest exponent on a variable is 2. How about this one? X to the 7th plus 1 equals 0. Well, in this polynomial, we see that the degree is equal to 7. And so that means it's going to have 7 answers. Now, sometimes those answers can get counted more than once, and that means that it has a higher multiplicity. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But essentially, we should get 7 answers out of this equation, but sometimes they count more than once. Finally, we have x squared plus x to the 4th, plus x squared minus 10 equals 0. The degree of this polynomial is 4. So that means that the number of answers we should expect to find is 4, including multiplicities. So this is all great. Notice how these polynomials I said equal to 0. We're going to try to put them in this form. Also notice that the exponents are decreasing in size as we move from left to right. That's called standard form, and it'll make our lives easier when we solve these if we write them in that way. So what we're going to use there's many ways to solve these kinds of equations, and the easiest way to solve them, I think, is to factor them and then solve using the zero factor property. So before I show you what that is, I want you to consider the following equation. AB equals 0. What are the solutions to this? Well, if it equals 0, there's only two options. Either A is 0, in which case B can be anything, and it works, we get 0, or B can be 0, and then A can be anything, and the entire thing equals 0. So if A is 0, that's a solution, and we don't care about B. If B is 0, then that's a solution, and we don't care about A. And so that's the crux of this. Let me just show you a really quick example. Let's say we were solving a problem and we were able to factor it into this. X plus 3 times x minus 5 is equal to 0. What are the solutions? Well, I like to think that one solution lives in here, in this factor, and one solution lives in here. And using this idea of the zero factor property of AB is equal to 0, we can figure this out. If this piece is 0, doesn't matter what this piece is, it's going to work. Likewise, if this piece is 0, doesn't matter what this piece is, it's going to be 0. So what value for x will make the left side be 0? The left factor, negative 3. If you plug in a negative 3 right there, you'd get negative 3 plus 3 is 0. That would gobble this up, and we'd get 0. The other answer, what would make this piece be 0? X equals 5. So those are the two solutions to this equation. And we do that by using the zero factor property. And so we're going to get an equation, try to factor it in this form, and then the answers kind of just fall right out. So let's take a look at what the actual zero factor property states. Consider this polynomial, x times bx plus c times dx plus c times x minus f equals 0. Now this is really important. This only works if we really are equal to 0. If it's a number right here, this is not going to work. You need to move the number over, then you could factor, then it might work. Also notice this is completely factored. Everything is in parentheses, and there's, like, if I wrote plus 3 right here, that'd be bad. It has to be completely factored. So if this equals 0, then because this x on the end here is all by itself, that means x could be 0. If x was 0, it would gobble all of this up. Also, bx plus c would equal 0. As long as this piece was 0 right here, it would gobble everything up. Same for dx plus e, same for x minus f. And so you could solve each of these for x if you wanted, and find the solutions in terms of x. So bx equals negative c, divide by b, so one solution is 0. Another solution is x equals negative c divided by b. You could solve this one in the same way, minus e, so dx equals negative e, divide by d, and you get x equals negative e over d, that's a solution. Finally, x minus f equals 0, add f to both sides, x equals f. So you can see that it's really easy to find the solutions if you can factor it. So let's look at an example. This first one, it says solve by factoring and using the zero factor property. Now I'm hoping that you already know how to factor from your previous math class. If not, we'll have to practice it a little bit. But let's factor this. It's really helpful if you can factor these right away. The way I like to do them is I need two numbers that multiply to give me 6 and add up to give me 5. So I need two numbers that multiply to make 6, add up to get 5. Our choices are 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. 2 and 3 will work. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 plus 3 is 5. So this factors to x plus 2, x plus 3 equals 0. And now we can use the zero factor property. Because this equals 0, one solution is x plus 2 equals 0, and the other solution is x plus 3 equals 0. So now just solve those two equations and you're done. Minus 2, x equals negative 2 is the first solution. Minus 3, x equals negative 3 is the second solution. If we look back, we see that the degree of the polynomial was 2. We have two answers. We're done. We can be satisfied that we found all the answers, and we are done. Don't forget, you can check your answer by plugging in negative 2 every time you see an x, and you should get 0. Or you could plug in negative 3 and plug that in and get 0. So factoring is, I think, the fastest way to do this, but not all of them factor. And if they don't factor, we will look and see next how to solve them. So let's do this one. X squared minus 4x minus 45 is 0. Why don't you try it on your own really fast, see if you can get it. Pause the video really quick, see if you can get it. I hope you did. Let's see if my answer matches yours. I need two numbers that multiply to make negative 45 and add up to make negative 4. So 45 doesn't have a lot of factors. 3 goes into it. 5 and 9 go into it. In fact, I think that's going to work. 5 and 9 are the factors. And let's see, if I want to add up to make negative 4, then that means the 9 needs to be negative, because 5 plus negative 9 is negative 4. So this factors to x plus 5, x minus 9 equals 0. And so if this piece is 0, that's a solution. If this piece is 0, that's a solution, because we equal 0 and because we're factored. So let's do that. X plus 5 is 0. I'm showing all my work, but you might be able to do this part in your head. Minus 5, x equals negative 5 is the solution. Plus 9, x equals plus 9, x equals 9 is another solution. So 5 and 9, negative 5 and 9 are our two solutions. Let's go ahead and check it just for fun. 9 squared is 81. Minus 4 times 9 is 36. Minus 45. Let's throw that into our calculator and see what we get. 81 minus 36 minus 45, which I messed up. Let's try again. 81 minus 36 minus 45 equals 0. So we're confident that that's a solution. Let's try negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25, positive. Negative 5 times negative 4 is plus 20, minus 45. And it's easy to see that that's going to equal 0. 25 plus 20 is 45, minus 45 is 0. So we checked our answer, and on a test we would know that these are the correct answers because we checked. And so we know we're going to get it right. So that works very nicely if you can factor. By the way, notice that the sign kind of flips when you are doing this. So I see some students who write this out and then they write 2 and 3 are the answer, but that's not right. It would actually be negative 2 and negative 3. So what happens if you can't factor? Well, there's other ways we can solve these, and I will show you those in part 2.